Handstanding core conditions the body in the hanging position as well as the standing position. So they're reciprocal movements, so one is tractioning out the body where the other one is got gravity pushing it down into the standing position. So I do 3 different types of these workouts and usually rotate them. In the past, when I had a busy studio, I'd run one for a month, then I'd change it each month. But you can change it more frequently. The main thing is to keep track of where you're at. So the most basic one is just a straight traction. Now, if you're just starting out, you can start out with the feet just touching the ground in between the efforts. Now, this is a secondary core movement, so move 2 as opposed to move 1, with bridging and segmental flexion extension being primary. This one is secondary to that because I don't feel it is as important. That being said, it is a very good way to condition the core. So when I'm going into flexion, I'm going to exhale, use the hip flexors, traction out. I go into extension, I'm going to use the glutes and the hamstring. So usually I do that for a minute, so that's going to build up that endurance and the grip strength and condition the body to get that nice open shoulder and get that nice strict line for your handstand. The reverse of that is the standing flexion extension. Now you can just start with body weight. If you've got any issues with the lower back, I highly recommend just taking your time, sliding the hands down the legs, and just work with the range that feels good. If you do struggle with lower back issues and you have very tight hamstrings, you might be better off investing the time in just doing forward hip hinges without rounding the back, especially if you do have any pain in the lower back, so that way you're doing hip back disassociation. But if the lower back's good and if it's healthy, it should be able to handle doing spinal flexion with hip flexion. And then as you come up, the head's the last to come up, and then going into extension. The head's the last to go up. So usually I'll do about 4 to 6 reps in a minute. I'm doing flexion extension. Now you can make that one harder by raising yourself up, getting more of a stretch at the bottom, getting more traction from the weight. So here the chin comes in, coming down, roll the spine down, traction out the spine. Now if someone doesn't have adequate range in the hamstrings, then it's going to put a lot more pressure in the lower back because the hips aren't moving into flexion far enough, so all that force ends up in the lower back. But if you do have adequate range, then it is a really good version, and you can load it up fairly significantly over time. You definitely don't want to rush it, and usually you can condition the tissues quite strong as long as you don't aggravate the connective tissue, so the ligaments and the discs within the spine, and you make the muscles strong enough to keep the force from getting in there. So it is a great way to condition the body, as well as if you're doing lower loads for longer duration, then you're going to condition the tendons and the ligaments and the connective tissue as well. So the next version is lateral. So from the dead hang position, tractioning out and then going to one side. Now I like to do one side for 30 seconds, then the other side for 30 seconds. Now if you're doing that, you're going to, for me anyway, here I have to move to one side and then come across. Now if you don't have something high enough to traction right out without touching the ground, you can do it with a bent leg, that's fine. Just make sure you're not twisting or rotating. So if you do 30 seconds one side, then go on to the other side. You can just go side to side as well and just keep alternating through the full minute. Then you've got side flexion. So again, you could go side to side with these and use 2 weights. I like doing one side, so you want to make sure you don't bend forward, don't bend back, don't rotate, and you're coming down slow, getting a nice stretch, and then head's the last to come up, coming back up to neutral. Now you can make that harder by coming onto one leg, down, stretching out, feeling that glute medius, glute minimus work with the obliques, the QL, that side. And going into the other side. So these work great for balance, stability, strength. They are a bit boring, but most of the core stuff is at the end of the workout. You don't need to overload the tissues to the point where they're, conditioned for high speed or high loads. It's more about duration and postural endurance. So last variation is the rotational hang. So here you're going into a hollow body in the front. You can tuck, and then going into the side, and then into extension, other side, and then around into flexion. And then you're going to reverse it. So coming back, alternating, breathing into extension, breathing out into flexion. Then for the standing variation, go down into flexion where it's comfortable. You want to be really careful with this, nice and controlled, breathing in. So you come around, hit that side flexion position into extension, breathing out, then reverse it. Now these can be done with load as well when you build them up. Definitely don't want to rush them, but I like to choose either one of these for 6 minutes once a week, just to keep that pattern conditioned. But like I said before, it isn't a priority core. I would rate bridging and segmental flexion extension, so crunch cobras, side crunches over these. But at the same time, if you're training every day, looking for a bit of variety and you want to get more overall balanced conditioning, then these are great. So get into them. If you need any feedback on them, any technique improvements, just submit your videos so I can have a look at your form, technique, and get back to you. Cheers guys.